everyone. Welcome to our panel. We're going to be discussing women in tech today and tomorrow. We're joined internationally. Actually, today we have two people joining. We have Joanna and Kadambara that have joined us online. And here in person, we have Florence and Louisa. So welcome. I would like to start firstly, actually, by saying when I say anything about a man, I am talking generally. I don't want to be singling people out. There are plenty of excellent men in telecoms that I have come across. So that's just a disclaimer at the very, very beginning. But starting off, I would like to talk about how women approach a task. When it comes to applying for a job, we all know that men will apply if they hit 60% of the criteria. Women will only apply if they hit 100. Should we be more encouraging? Should we be more courageous and have a go and see what happens? So I'm posing that question.
Lisa?
I think it's incumbent upon both sides so yes, women perhaps need to have a little bit more courage about identifying opportunities that they think they're suited for, and perhaps take a little bit of a risk when it comes to not fulfilling 100% of the criteria. But equally, people in leadership positions or hiring managers or mentors or sponsors within organizations need to be actively encouraging women to take that risk as well. And hiring managers need to think about the different ways in which women make decisions about jobs that they take and accommodate that. It's not just, you know, in all of these conversations that we're going to have today, it's not just one single thing. There's going to be multi-layers to how we resolve the gender balance within organizations.
Sure.
Seems to me Anna wanted to say something.
Yeah, it's a very valid point, excellent point. But I think it goes beyond the organization. Actually, women should support women even outside of the workforce. And it's very important that in our personal lives, we support our friends, we support our female family members to be more courageous. And maybe leading by example and showing examples from our own personal career, and really encourage women to be more forward and to be more bold in saying, why don't you just try and see what happens? What's the worst that can happen? And you might fail, but you might learn from this failure. And I think it's very important also how we raise women and how we lift up women that are around us. So just wanted to make this point as well.
It seems to me, yeah, it's not only the courage, and it's the environment. And we have around so many men who don't want we evaluate at the same level as they do. And it seems to me, yeah, we lack of confidence and trust because of the model from the education when we were a baby. Because the man arrives in the family, the boy arrives in the family and is a king, and the girl has to fight all the time. And that is why perhaps we lack of trust and confidence.
Actually, that's an excellent point. I remember when we were planning for this and I was discussing that little boys, they're raised to be brave, have a go. Like, what's the worst that can happen? If you try something, you fall over, you dust your knees, you carry on. But as a girl, you're raised to be the pretty princess, to sit there, to be very nice, to not make a fuss, to be just a very sweet person.
And be careful, and to be careful, yeah? To be careful.
Yeah, to not have too many risks. So I think that's kind of ingrained in our brains that when we want to have a go and attempt something as a woman, as a grown woman, as an adult, there's still that little voice in the back of your head that's telling you, but you have to be good at it. I know it's your first attempt, but you must master it straight away, which is rubbish. Everyone's allowed to mess up a little as they go. I think that's what makes things better.
But this is where I get back to men need to take responsibility, because what happens in an organizational sense is if a woman fails, she doesn't get another go at it.
No,
A man
absolutely.
fails, okay, he's learning, we'll give him another shot at it. That's organizationally, in every organization I've ever worked at, that is what happens.
And then
that's the psyche we need to change.
the woman gets told off more, and then she's never given that same opportunity because that happened. We won't trust her again. Whereas a man, he's learned from his mistakes. He will be better the second time around. And it's not given to women. So,
and isn't it also because as women, we're very often very critical to ourselves, and we always also very often come forward and say we made a mistake. This is our fault. We take the blame. We take the responsibility, because women feel that, I mean, the way women perceive accountability and responsibility is quite different to sometimes men. Whereas we don't go around blaming people. I'm not saying that men do that, but we very often take the blame and come very forward saying, this is my fault, rather than saying, I need more support. I need more help. I need these resources and these tools to succeed in my task or my job.
I think if I can add on to that, can you hear me? Yeah, so if I can add on to that, so I think the preconditioning that happens to women from when we're a very young age, and you've all you've all touched onto this, from a very young age, we are preconditioned to sort of act in a certain way, which is very unfortunate, right? On the extreme side of it, now I have a friend who told me this, and I thought this was a bit extreme. He said women are the biggest chauvinists, and I actually got offended initially. And I don't mean to offend anyone, but I just want us to be very open about this concept. And it is sort of true, right? We are raised by chauvinists. I mean, I do love my mother, but we are raised by chauvinists. We are raised in an environment on the extreme end, while boys, when you're young, while boys are playing football, you're encouraged to serve and maybe to cook. This is the extreme. But then on a milder end, boys are encouraged to get into sciences. And again, someone has touched on this. If you act or if you play in a very aggressive way, someone says you're not acting like a lady. You know, if you're assertive, if you're confident, if you take yourself out there and you're like, here I am, hear me out, you're always called on to act like a little girl. And it's that conditioning that happens in a very young age that starts to build our mindset and how we react towards gender. And we become actually the most gender biased, not even knowing it, without intentionally wanting to do it. So I think it's very, it's very important that we are aware and we are cognizant of our own gender biases and how they affect women in the boardroom and outside of boardroom, and how, because as leaders, as decision makers, how we think when a woman walks into a room and how we conclude and how we judge them and whether or not we give them a job, all of that adds on to parity and whether or not we'll ever attain equity. Thank you.
absolutely. I'm going to move on to my next point. So you mentioned gender bias. And I was going to say, in my telecoms career, I've definitely encountered male co-workers getting unfair advantages and benefits at work over me, through no fault of my own, except that I was born a woman. I would normally keep these frustrations to myself and I wouldn't share them with anyone. It would just kind of build up inside. But I started to tell people. I started to tell my dad, my husband, other male colleagues, so they know as a woman what I'm going through that they might not experience. And it's actually helped them be more aware so they can be part of the active change rather than just sitting back and being passive. So I was going to ask, excuse me, have you experienced gender bias? If there are any examples you'd like to give, I know that's not something everyone wants to share, but just in case, if there was anything. So is there anything that you have noticed and in your role in industry? Because I know that we're all slightly different industries, so that could be an interesting one.
Yeah, I set up my own company 10 years ago, and I decided to attend conferences all over the world. And I need to tell that it has been really tough to be in this world of men and all over the world in some region, tough region. And it has been, trouble experience, but I survived and I never gave up. And now, as I mentioned to Luisa, the men protect me against other men, but it has been, wow, really difficult. Now it's okay, it's the past, but yeah, I experienced these biais, yeah.
I was really lucky, I think, with my managers in my career to be very supportive in my journey. But when I joined initially over a decade ago, this industry, I felt intimidated because I was very new to this industry. I didn't come from this industry. I'm not a technical person, but I work for a technology company. Obviously, every day surrounded by a lot of men that really know very well their business, their technology. And yeah, certainly in the early stages of my career, I really felt like I constantly needed to prove that I deserve to be at the table and that I deserve to be, that my opinion deserves to be listened to. How much of it was the actual bias and how much of this was my own imposter syndrome, question mark, I would say. I've definitely experienced over the years and in my personal life and professional career, those surprise looks. Oh, you're interested in technology. Oh, do you know those latest trends? You are good with technology. It was coming as a surprise, and definitely experienced some mild cases of mansplaining to me. But I was very lucky to have a very supportive mentors in my roles. But I think what you mentioned is so important, that when we observe a situation of gender bias or any unfair treatment, we need to raise awareness about this, because some of this bias might be very unconscious or conscious, even worse so. So it's so important to call it out, because we need not just women to support us, but also, like you said, men to support us and protect us. And I think the awareness, raising the awareness is extremely important. And not just raising awareness around the topic in front of other women who are aware of our issues, but really among the men, so that they could be our sponsors, our mentors, and protect us if need be.
Yeah, which actually brings me on to my next point, which it's, if they can see it, they can be it. It's a sentence we've all heard before, and I think it's true. And I was going to say, it's a psychological thing that when people are looking for others to mentor and bring up through the ranks and try and encourage them getting more involved, you tend to look for your own. It's just a thing that we do. It's like looking out for your younger self. So with men being in these senior positions, they tend to want to find other young men that they can bring up through the ranks. So, and I know that we discussed this about mentorship, and men should actively look at widening and broadening this search to include women.
Talent doesn't get assigned to gender. Talent is universal, and the sooner that both men and women realize that, the sooner they're able to start picking up talented people to mentor and sponsor through the organization. Whether you are male or female, most successful CEOs have had mentorship and sponsorship throughout their career. They very rarely, unless you're a startup CEO at a very young age, and even then I would argue you've had some sort of mentorship through school or university or your network or your parents' network. That is how we learn and progress. So yeah, it's fundamental to how we progress talent. And if you think about telecoms and energy, which is the sector that I'm in, unless we start bringing up young talent through mentorship and sponsorship, we're an aging workforce and an aging talent that will not have the skill set to progress and innovate and move forward. It's just, we have to think differently about this.
it starts to get stale as well. If you're only looking for a certain type of person to be able to fill this exact need, then it gets stale. And then the industry is going to carry on, but it's not going to be innovative. It's not going to be inclusive. It's not going to include people from different backgrounds. Yeah, I think it's key. Has anyone?
If I can interject. So absolutely. I mean, Elaine, there's a point you brought up that was, I think it's quite vital that, you know, people tend to look for their own, for what's similar to them when they're promoting, when they want to mentor. And the reality is 74, well, in the West, 74%, and it's a massive number. In the West, 74% are literally male employees, male leaders. So so the representation of women is significantly much smaller, and these are the men that are making our decision. What is also very that we need to, that it's not unfortunate, but we need to understand and highlight, and I think as men they need to understand and be cognizant of, is the fact that when you make this decision on our behalf, you also speak on our behalf, because in boardrooms with people who are similar to you, you speak on our behalf. So you represent us. So for every, and you know, I'm a victim of one, but for every job that we didn't get, and part of the influence is gender, then you get obviously maybe the person who takes over the position is a person who's talking on your behalf, and this is a male. So our it's not only whether or not maybe we get certain positions or whether or not there's parity in this way, it's also the people who speak our narrative are people who are in the boardroom, and majority of them are men. So I think it's very important for men to actually understand this. And every once in a while, if we're misrepresented and as a result, we don't have the same opportunities, then people can call it out.
I was going to ask, has anyone here actually got a mentor? Has anyone been actively seeked out by someone at senior in the company to try and raise them up, or?
Not now, but in the past, I definitely have.
You have,
yeah,
you have experienced
absolutely,
that.
100%.
Okay.
I'm mentoring of people now.
But these were always men who mentored me. And I think I wanted to make a point to your point that we have to also reverse this. So you said people are looking for their own, and it works the other way as well. When you're looking as a young female for what is the possibility for your future career growth, you're looking for the likes similar to you. And because the representation, especially in our industry, of women in those senior roles is minor, it's still very small. They don't have the role models to look up to. Therefore, I think, you know, also when it comes to recruitment, identifying opportunities for promotions, the companies have to really do it with inclusivity and gender equality in mind, to make sure that women have equal representation of female role models to look up to and to mentor them. I think, you know, this is just a reverse scenario of what you just pointed out very rightfully.
As Luisa told, talent has no gender, but sometimes it seems to me that women fear men, and they are afraid that the woman take the seat of a man in C-level. And sometimes I have the feeling that women are alone, and even if the talent has no gender, they have to fight all the time and to struggle always, and they are less helped than the men, what I feel.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was just going to follow on as well from your point, Joanna, just saying that it is intimidating as a woman. Well, like when you go to events, sometimes when you walk in and there's a room of 200 people and you look around and you see 3 other women and you think, oh wow, what am I going to say? What am I going to do? And it is a barrier sometimes you having that conversation, even when it's as silly as something, you know, everyone's just having a bit of a chat and it's about a topic you don't know so much about, like football, and you think,
Oh yeah, football, rugby, all
Yeah,
of
so you're just kind of standing at the side and you think, why, I have no
Yeah.
idea how to start a conversation. Oh, then they'll even worse. They'll do something like, oh, sorry, we don't want to talk about man stuff. What do you want to talk about? What woman stuff do you want to talk about?
makeup.
Like, I don't
Makeup.
know, careers, the environment, everything,
Absolutely.
politics. It's a
Yeah.
very open thing to discuss women things. And it's just annoying that it gets pigeonholed at events when it shouldn't be. We're at an event to talk business, talk work, move things forward.
Absolutely.
So, frustration. Okay, so then I'm thinking about women as we move forward and what we do. And women naturally aren't glory seekers. Women will do things, achieve things, and think to themselves as they make their cup of tea in the morning, well, that was nice, that was good, well done me. Whereas men, God, you hear about it, don't you? Like on LinkedIn, on Twitter, I've done this, I've done that, mail shots go out about it, press releases and everything. So I'm saying, should women be more glory seekers? Should we pat each other on the back? Should we be encouraging more? Should we shout every success we have from the rooftops? What do you think?
I think you're absolutely right, Elaine. It's, you know, it's quite shocking how many women that I know that have done tremendous, amazing things, right? Literally like amazing life-changing things, monumental things. But these people are the most humble people that you know, and they don't call it out. It's part of my mentorship program. When I mentor people, I actually tell them, you have to be visible. And the only way you attain visibility, the only way, first of all, you grow is someone has to notice you. And for that to happen, you have to be visible. So without visibility, you will not get anywhere. And that's just, unfortunately, it's just the reality. So I always try to get people to be more visible. I'll give you an example. One of the biggest banks here in Tanzania, I'm calling from Africa, but one of the biggest banks here in Tanzania is now led by a woman. And ever since she's joined, I mean, tremendous changes, over 41% growth year on year. It's just amazing changes, even internally in terms of empowerment, in terms of programs that they're running. But you hear about what the bank is doing, but you don't even see her like on social media, like all these achievements that she's gone through. And this woman, her name is Ruth Zaipuna, she has done amazing things. So I just think it's one of those examples. Women are extremely humble, and this is great. But I think we miss out when we don't call out. And then for those of us who maybe have learned over the years to do it and we call it out, and we're not shy of walking into a room or storming into a room. I think I sort of storm into a room. People don't necessarily always embrace that as well, because you're acting so unlike a woman, right? You're walking in as though you own the world. You're walking in as though saying, hey, I believe in myself. I can do A, B, C, and D. I've done A, B, C, and D. Even though you're not saying it, you're acting in that way. It makes a few people uncomfortable, and you will encounter that. But you need to be comfortable in the uncomfortability and just move on. And then maybe not think so much as yourself as a woman or just a person.
Yeah, so valid what you just mentioned. I think comes previous comment about the upbringing and how we are structuring our brains to think, oh, we're never perfect, never enough. But I think because it doesn't naturally come from women, we need the organizations to help and stimulate that behavior by celebrating equally successes of men and women within the organization. And it's always an important role of the senior management, the management in the company, to endorse in the same way achievements from men and women, even if the female or male employees don't necessarily come forward. And that is the role of perhaps the HR teams and marketing teams, which I am very lucky to work for a company that always celebrates achievements equally for all of our employees, even without the employees coming forward. It's so important because that can stimulate that behavior. Then later we feel more comfortable sharing, wow, my team has achieved this, we've done that, this is amazing news. And it starts from there, isn't it?
Yeah, no, sorry, go on.
I was thinking about the mother bee syndrome and the women who have a man attitude. can't we have our integrity without being like the men, but reivindicating our challenges, our courage, without aggressivity and without pushing our strengths?
Yeah, I don't think you can expect women to become successful by becoming honorary men. That is not a pathway to gender success. I agree with all of the points, and yes, I agree that women need to work at becoming more visible, but the reality is there are some people who are just never going to be comfortable with that. And to Joanna's point, it is an organizational issue, but I don't think it's just down to HR and marketing. Men have to take responsibility for this. I just keep coming back to men have created this problem. Men need to be part of the solution. So men need to be consciously promoting women within the organization. They need to be creating that visibility for women. They need to be promoting the successes, and not just on International Women's Day, all year round.
That does my head in. I can't stand it. The amount of men that I have met at events, and they belittle me, they take advantage, they'll put their hand around my waist, and I haven't asked for that. They have called me hun, love, darling, and then they're all, oh, women, it's Women's International, all round of applause for women. And you think, well, how about rather than just one day in March, how about for just your career? You're just nice about women, and you give us opportunities, you mentor us, you help us, you take responsibility for everything that has happened so far. But one day, it really riles me up every single year. But anyway,
So
moving
true.
on. I don't have all day to talk about that. Work-life balance. So we were speaking about this before, the superhero dad, which is doing a task that the regular mum does, and it's no big deal for the woman. So if a child is sick, it's always the mum that gets the call first to come and pick up the ill child. So should we maybe remove mother and father and go with more parental role? Because if a man takes time off work to go and pick up a sick child, first of all, they're, paraded around like the greatest dad ever, but also they're then laughed at a little bit because their wife hasn't gone and done this woman's task. So should we just call it more of a work-life balance and make it more equal between men and women with the mother and father and parental role?
I just want to add that nowadays, some men want to have this role of the mother at home, but it's difficult for them because they don't have, they pay for our past, and they don't have this recognition by their pair, but they would appreciate to take care of the children and to stay at home. But socially, it's not well encouraged. That is a counterpoint, but yeah, they pay for our past, and the self-balance, life balance is not, in their sense, it's same. But it was a parenthesis, because more and more I hear about men wanted to take care of the children when they raise their babies, but they don't have the recognition of their pair.
And not just socially, but also in some countries, still the legislation is not prepared for the situation that the father can take equal leave, parental leave, and this is always this differs from obviously one geography to another, but there's still many countries where there's no way for men to take up this role, and that traditionally will fall on women, and that's such a big problem in some markets, in my opinion.
Just wanted to offer if anyone
But
else.
once again, it's a question of organization, and the HR has to help the woman to have this balance between home and office, then it's a question of organization or legislation. But yeah, often the woman need to be helped once again to have the double role to play. What do you think, Luisa?
So did I interrupt someone? No, so yeah, so I just wanted to add that, and I think this plays into part of the reason why the gender or rather the work-life balance maybe cannot be so balanced. Obviously, you've touched on a lot, but I just wanted to highlight on this whole concept of women being super. If one more person calls me superwoman or an independent Black, I swear to God, I'm literally going to get boxing gloves. But it's this whole concept that we all have to be so strong all the time, and we all have to be super efficient, and then we are compared to machines and super women, Superman, and this being with extraterrestrial powers, and we take that upon ourselves. I think a lot of women take that upon themselves to be the best mother, to be 100% available to the husband, to the mother, and then to work. And obviously something is going to give. You can't give 100% of yourself everywhere, and that's just the reality. The MD of PepsiCo, and she's amazing, the great Noe, she says that you have, as a woman, you have to let go of that concept. There's no such thing as superwoman, and then you have to delegate. And she's like, delegate everything, everyone, with the exception of your children, because at 18 you don't have them, but delegate, learn to delegate. Have people who will help you run your life so that you can give the best to your family. Who, remember, it's important to showcase that you can raise, they can be as powerful as you are, and you can raise strong and independent women, right? And then also have the work-life balance, but you really truly have to delegate and let go of the notion of you being great at everything and anything. There is no such thing. And forgive yourself for places where you cannot be and places that you cannot attend, and just explain and move on.
And also that sometimes puts some women in the position that they feel like they have to make a choice, either career or family life, because of a lack of this work-life balance. And that's very concerning, because it almost feels like men don't have to take these choices, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I was just going to say, for me, it's not about, I think work-life balance is a misnomer. I don't think it's possible. I think it's about work-life flexibility. So there are some times where you do need to give more to career, and sometimes where you do need to give more to family, or to whatever the case is. And it's up to each individual to work out what that flexibility looks like, and for the organisation to work out ways to support that.
Yeah, especially when it could be a man wanting to stay at home and raise the children, which I know isn't really a normal thing. Well, here in the UK, I can only talk about the UK. I don't know experiences elsewhere, but I know it is more female-led to stay at home. So,
same in France.
It's the same. I think in Africa, it's even more extreme. Because where you are, 30 years ago, maybe I'm being a bit of an exaggeration, but maybe that's where we are 40 years ago. So I think in Africa, it's even more. Yeah.
Okay, so then my other point, I know this is going to rile maybe someone up. I'm looking at the topic of be more man. In Motherland, which is a sitcom here in the UK, I don't know if anyone else watches it. This woman, she was offered a promotion and she considered it. She had to weigh up the options, the work-life balance, the more responsibility, everything, blah, blah, blah. And she asked her friend for advice, and her friend said, take it. A man wouldn't weigh up the options. A man would hear more power, more responsibility, go for it, do it. So should we, I'm scared of the answer, should we be more man? I think I know the answer straight away.
Absolutely not.
It's interesting.
I think.
No, go on.
I absolutely not. I don't think I think this comes from a notion that may be preconceived, notion, misleading even, that obviously the ideal corporate person, the ideal figure is a man in a suit. So I think that's where we need to go back to. And that's what we need to actually change. because it has been proven, obviously, many, many times that women are great leaders as well. So I think we need to change that conception. And if we can change that, then we actually don't, there is no need for us to be more men. And I mean, women, because of who we are and how we are, how nurturing we are, all of these is actually part of the reason why we are so great at whatever it is we choose to do. Part of the reason why we're such great leaders, because we have empathy. So I think being a woman is actually one of those things that gives us sort of something extra to bring to the table, because we are women and we are feminine. And I think it's something that we need to embrace, and everybody, and she's mentioned this before, everybody needs to embrace, especially the men, because we obviously part of the problem, we also have to be part of the solution. But for me, yeah, definitely, absolutely no. I think the more women, the more successful we will all be eventually.
We shouldn't be more men, I think. But I get your point. Maybe we should sometimes act bolder, and because of the corporate the corporate strategies should allow women not to have to take choices, like I just said in my previous comment. But I think what you just said is so important. Women are different to men. We bring different skill set to the table. We tend to care about the team. We are more inclusive. We are better listeners. We have more attention to details. We're more open to discussions. And these are great values of a leader. But yeah, so we shouldn't be more men, I think, because it's about diversity and inclusivity, so we can utilize the best skill sets we have as men and women and collaborate together. But it is important that women are supported in a way by companies, that they don't have to think of, oh, is this going to ruin my work-life balance? Do I have to give up this opportunity because it will cost me something else in my personal life?
Yeah, exactly, which is what we were talking about.
So there's a McKinsey study that says, and this is just at leadership level, but at leadership level, if you have greater gender diversity, you will be you'll generate more revenue. And they studied this, and McKinsey also looked at if you can increase your racial diversity, you will be more profitable as well. So from a business point of view, if you want to bring it back to business, having gender and racial diversity within your organization will help you to be more innovative. It will help you to, as Joanna said, to bring different skill sets to the organization in terms of how you care for people and how you support and develop people, which ultimately will lead to greater revenue and greater profitability, because customers will want to work with companies who have great culture, and you have great culture by having greater gender diversity and greater racial diversity. It's just what the studies have shown. So if we encourage women to become more like men and honorary men in terms of, and that's how they become successful, we will not get that diversity.
But it's a question of trust and confidence. Once again, we can keep our values and our integrity, and to bring diversity and inclusion in the company, but not being like men, staying ourselves, but with confidence. Because if we trust in our value, our know-how, our expertise, then we can be strong without being like men. We keep our, Joanna gave all our values, but we keep our values, we get more confidence, self-confidence, and then we bring to the company better diversity.
Exactly. And I think it all comes back to mentorship as well. Like you said before, if men champion as women and we can get into these roles, then we can continue to be ourselves as women, but just in higher positions, and then bring more girls up into becoming business women and creating a better, more profitable, more diverse company for the future. So excellent. And my last point, I know we're running very tight on time, but it's just essentially to summarize everything that we've said. So I said, is there a clear way on how to make a workplace lead to higher productivity, greater innovation and achievement through diversity, which I think I've already covered. So I think it's just going to be nodding, I think, from everyone, isn't it? Everyone
Yes.
positive that maybe if we did hire more women, hire everyone from different backgrounds, then hopefully we can work.
Yeah, I think one more point I wanted to add here. One thing we spoke about this is recruitment with diversity in mind. But the challenge of our industry is that there are, the women are intimidated to join the industry, and because they feel this is a very technical, very male-dominated, all the things we spoke about. So I think it's important that as women in technology, we promote this industry to other women, maybe through graduate programs, speaking to young females that, hey, actually you can work in technology. You don't even have to be technical. There are lots of jobs that don't even necessarily require technical skills. You shouldn't be intimidated, but leading by example and showing, there's a path to grow in this industry. And actually the industry needs more diversity and balance to bring all those important skill sets to the table. So that's what I wanted to add to all of what you said. I mean, that summarizes, doesn't it?
And
very, very quickly, I would actually like to call upon women. A lot of times we are the problem and we don't even know it because of things that we've explained, our own gender biases. I would really like to call upon women, like she said, call upon women to really take ownership of this and to move things forward, but to also accept that we are a part of a problem. And I just wanted to add that to her point.
So you're going to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that notably in tech, the men will be so sad if we were not during these conferences and at the office without the woman. They will be so sad. And yeah, because technically, yeah, it's nice to have great technical expertise, but without this famous diversity and inclusion, we bring so much in the company and in this men world. Yeah, I suppose Louisa with.
Yeah, I think just more. Everyone, it is painful, and it's a shame that so many people, when they watch these and they hear of these panels, it's usually the women that come along and get involved. And you think, well, we can only do so much. And as you said about mentorship and men getting involved, men should be here listening to see what they could do or how they can support, because everyone's got a mum. People have girlfriends, wives, sisters. Everyone knows a female that is struggling in some way in business. And I think if more men got involved, they knew the struggles, I think the struggles would go down so quickly if they were just aware. And I think it's sad that men don't come along to educate themselves about what they could do differently to help a female. I
You
guess.
should have more men on the panel next time.
Yeah, maybe we'll get a man.
Absolutely.
Well, I have a question in the room, Eric.
I was going to say, well, I think that's us coming up to the end of our time. I don't know if anyone's got any questions or if question time is built in. I don't know if anything's come through, or
I will repeat something that Louisa told. It's men has to take their responsibility, and they put in place this situation, and they have to take the responsibility and to help to solve the situation.
Yeah,
100%.
Exactly.
Men created the system. Men need to undo the system.
There you go. That's a nice sentence to finish on. So, up to you guys, I guess.
Someone just called us out and actually called me out and said, we are here. So there are men and they are here. They wanted us to acknowledge them.
There are some, exactly. And I did start this by saying, when I say men, I'm not victimizing or picking on all men. There have been some fantastic men that I have worked with. There you go. You're okay. So thank you to all the men that I have that's, you know, supported me personally. I know that there's many. I also know that there are many that have held me down. So yeah, it's quite nice to have the microphone and I can be in control of this narrative. So I think it's our come to time. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you
pleasure.
for dialing
Lovely
in. Thank
discussion.
you.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you all, lovely ladies.